There are countless ways of journaling out there, but my personal favorite is photo journaling. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 easy layouts that you can do to start putting photos into your own journal today. For this layout, you're going to need a piece of craft paper or cardstock. Today I'm using a lightweight cardstock, a white gel pen, a black marker. Today I'm using a dual tip brush marker, a paper trimmer or scissors, a ruler, some type of adhesive, and 4 photographs of your choice. Since we are on the topic of photos, let's talk about getting your photographs printed for your project. These days, getting physical photos printed is easier than ever. Gone are the days of taking your film or your memory card down to the local drugstore and waiting weeks for your prints. Now, more than ever, I love the convenience of getting my photographs printed without ever having to leave my home. If messing with a printer doesn't sound like your thing, you can use an app like FreePrints. You just upload your photos and send them off to be printed. Then they deliver high quality prints straight to your door. Talk about convenience. I'm gonna be using photos printed by FreePrints in all of my layouts today. All right, let's stop talking and start creating our first layout. When I do these sorts of layouts, I like to choose photographs that all have a central theme. For today's layout, I'm going to be using food photographs that I took over the course of a month. Some ideas would be books you have been reading, photographs from the same afternoon or event, or pictures of your garden, to name a few. The possibilities are endless. Now that I have my supplies, it's time to decide how I want my layout to look. The journal I am working in today is 8.25 inches by 5.5 inches. That means if I do a double page spread, I have an 8.25 inch by 11 inch space to work with. I like to have a little border around my photographs to give it that grid look, so I'm going to cut my photos into 4x4 pieces. This will also leave me space on either side of the grid for a title and some journaling. How big you make your photographs in your grid is going to depend on the size of your journal and your photographs, so make sure you're measuring your journal page so that it turns out correct for you. After I've cut my photographs, I'm going to take my cardstock and cut 2 strips to place on either side of the grid. I'm going to measure the remaining space on the page and cut my pieces slightly shorter and thinner than the space available to match the border space in the photo grid. My pieces ended up being 1.5 inches wide by just over 8 inches tall. The size of your photograph grid and pieces is going to all depend on your journal and your project, so make sure you use the measurements that are right for you. Now that I have my pieces cut, I'm going to play around with the placement of my photos and see which arrangement looks the best. Once I have that picked out, it's time to adhere my pieces to the page and add the final touches. I'm now going to grab my black brush pen to add my title on the left and some caption headings on the right so that I can write a small blurb of journaling about each photo. Finally, I'm going to take my white gel pen and add some doodling. I love making these fun diamond shapes. It adds simple elegance to the page and really helps bring it all together. There you have it. A fun photo grid layout. Let's jump into the next lesson. For this lesson, you're going to need a larger photograph. I'm using an 8x10 size for my layout today. You're also going to need the craft cardstock we used in our first layout, a black pen or marker, an adhesive of your choice, some colored pencils, and a date stamp. The date stamp is optional. Today I picked this photograph of the leaves in the fall time because I really think this photo speaks for itself in this time of year. A lot of people enjoy fall, and this is a simple way to document an entire season in one photograph without a lot of additional support. First, I'm going to look at my page and see where I would like my photo placement. I'm going to choose to put the shoes in the photograph centered so that I can put a piece of craft paper with my title and journaling on the other side of it. This will all look really nice when it's done. Because my photo is larger than my page, I'm going to put my adhesive on my page and then put my photo on top of that. This will allow me to cut away the excess and get the photograph flush with the edges without a lot of extra work. If you prefer, you can measure your page and cut, but I find this to be the easiest way. After I'm done that, I'm going to take my craft paper and make our journaling spot and title. I'm going to do this by eyeballing how big I would like it based on the shoes in the photograph. Then I'm going to rip out a square to get these rough rustic edges. Next, I'm going to write my title, and then I'm going to take my brush pen and create some fun fall leaf doodles. Don't worry, if you're not an artist, you don't have to add any doodles. You can use stickers or anything else that tickles your fancy. My doodles are by no means perfect, but they get the job done and they look pretty cute. Next, I'm going to grab my colored pencils and add some color to my doodles, as well as a fun border. Once we've completed that, we're going to add our date stamp, and we finished our layout. Feel free to add any additional stickers or stamps or coloring to complete the look. There you go, our second simple layout that still packs a punch. Let's move on to our final lesson. For this lesson, you're gonna need, you guessed it, the craft cardstock from our previous layouts, a white gel pen, an adhesive of your choice, a date stamp, some paper for the background, watercolors, a brush, and some ephemera. For my layout, I'm going to be using die cuts and a label, but use whatever suits your project. First, I'm going to work on choosing a piece of paper for my background. I'm going to walk you through real quick how I chose this piece of paper to match my photograph. As you can see, in this photograph, there is a lot of neutral color. There's the white deck furniture as well as the gray deck. You can see the tan of my legs, as well as the yellow in the book cover. The other color that's dominant in this photograph is the green in the back. I could choose to use the yellow for my background paper, but we're gonna add some yellow later. So for now, I'm gonna stick with the greenery in my photograph. I really want to use a picture of greenery to pull out the fact that I'm outside and to have a really nice dark background for this light photograph to sit on. I'm gonna start by cutting off the edges of my photograph. This will help me create a very interesting look because it's not a standard 4x6 print after I cut the sides off. Next, I'm gonna place my piece of paper down on my journal and add my photograph on top. Then I'm gonna choose some supporting ephemera to place down with it. I'm going to add these butterflies as they match the orangey tint of my legs. They also have a bit of gold, which will match the cover on the book nicely. I'm going to arrange these butterflies using the rule of 3 to keep my eye moving across the page. I could arrange the butterflies all underneath each other in a single row. However, that draws your eye to that particular part of the page. Because we have a lot going on in this layout, I want your eye to keep moving across the page. So I'm going to choose to put my first butterfly hanging off the top of my page on the top left. I'm going to put the second butterfly towards the left top corner of my photograph. This will not only draw your eye down, but it will also help me blend the photograph and the scrapbooking paper in with the rest of the layout. I'm going to choose to put my final butterfly on the bottom right corner of my photograph. As you can see, the 3 elements drawing your eye across the page really helps you focus on all the areas of the photograph rather than just where I've placed the butterflies. You can use this rule of 3 to keep your eye moving across the page on any of your layouts. I'm also going to add an additional piece of ephemera, this vintage ticket here, behind the butterfly, again to help blend everything together. Finally, I'm going to bring in that piece of craft paper that we used before. I'm going to tear a little strip to put under my label, and I'm going to arrange my craft paper, my label, and my final butterfly in a nice collage there at the bottom. Then it's time to adhere everything to my page and focus on bringing the rest of the layout together. Then I'm going to add some doodling with my white pen. I'm going to choose to add these diamond shapes. They're really simple doodles that add some interesting elegance to your page. Next, we're going to create a bit of journaling space. The other layouts that we created today did not have a lot of writing space, but I wanted to make sure you had a layout in your toolbox to use when you wanted a little more writing. For this, I'm going to take my water brush and my watercolors. I'm going to load my water brush with the watercolors, and then I'm going to create some very shaky lines across the page. These don't have to be perfect. The more imperfect they are, the more handmade this looks, and it really gives it a nice touch. Basically, we're just making ourselves some lines to do some journaling on, but it gives that organic feel and it adds that bit of color. I chose this color to match the front of my book that I'm reading because to me, that is the other important part in my photograph. Besides the being outside part, obviously my photograph is about the book I'm reading. After we've finished adding our lines, I'm going to take those lines and extend them onto the next page behind the photograph. This will give it the impression that the lines were there before everything got put on, and it'll give it a really nice cohesive look. Finally, I'm going to continue to add some more watercolor. I'm going to add it around my butterfly and around my project. I'm going to do this by using a circular motion with my brush to create these puffy cloud effects. This just helps it look like it was supposed to be there and really brings the layout together. When adding this watercolor, it's also important to note that I will taper off behind the photograph and then pop up in a different place. This again just helps everything look like it was supposed to be there. And once you finish that, you're ready to add your journaling and you're done. That's it! You've completed your third layout. You now have a handful of techniques to put into your own creative toolbox. I hope this lesson gave you some ideas on how to add printed photographs to your own journals. I have so much fun not only creating these layouts, but also looking back on them. Remember, your pages don't have to be perfect. It's all about enjoying the process. Feel free to share your pages with your loved ones or keep them for yourself. Well, that's it for me today. Feel free to rewatch these lessons when you need a refresher. For more tutorials, be sure to subscribe to the FreePrints channel and check out these other awesome videos. Happy creating!